This video series concerns Montesquieu's considerations on the causes of the greatness of the Romans and their decline, published in 1734. It is written between Montesquieu's two other great works, the Persian Letters and the Spirit of the Laws, which he considered his opus and which was published in 1748. What does the considerations concern? Let us put considerations into a larger context among modern thinkers that teach about the Romans directly. There are three great books on Rome among the moderns. Machiavelli's Discourse, which was published in the early 1500s, Montesquieu's Considerations, published in 1734, and Edward Gibbon's Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, published in 1776. Now, Machiavelli influenced Montesquieu, and Montesquieu influenced Gibbon. They build on each other's work, as I will try to show over the course of this video series some. But there is a strange division of labor among the three thinkers. Machiavelli concerns more than anything the Roman Republic, which ended, as we know, with the rise of Julius Caesar, or really with the rise of Octavius in the last years before Christ. There are no references in Machiavelli's discourses to Diocletian, for instance, and only a passing reference to Trajan or Hadrian in Book 1, Chapter 10. Thus, the greatest emperors of the Roman Empire are hardly in Machiavelli's book. Heck, even Caesar Augustus, the man who sat at the hinge of Rome moving from a republic to an empire, is mentioned only twice in Machiavelli's discourses. Similarly, as you might expect, Gibbon's Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, a long tome, concerns the empire. It picks up the action at the time of the Antonines, at the death of Marcus Aurelius in approximately 180 AD, when the empire has already grown old and decrepit. Gibbon charts how it comes back to life, kind of, but then declines. Mostly, he charts how it declines. Now, Montesquieu's Considerations, a smaller book, treats Rome from the beginning to the end, despite being the shortest of the books. Thus, its ambitions are somewhat more or different than Machiavelli and Gibbon. Montesquieu wants to offer a history of Rome, a sweep, an account of how all the things fit together. In this, I think it right to see Montesquieu joining a conversation with another book, St. Augustine's City of God, a book that pretty much treats Rome from beginning to near its end, and a book that offers a Christian critique and a limited Christian defense of the Roman political community. Did St. Augustine value the right things? Did he find greatness in the right things? Did St. Augustine see Roman decadence in the right things? Montesquieu, we shall see, rejects St. Augustine's standards of judgment and offers a different historical arc for understanding Rome's greatness and decadence. This brings up a second point. This book is not simply a history. It is considerations on the causes of the greatness and decadence of the Romans. These considerations go beyond the narrow question of what caused Rome's greatness or decadence. These considerations apply those causes to Montesquieu's time as well. Those considerations teach what Montesquieu would have his audience learn from the Romans for modern times. Montesquieu aims to provide a universal teaching on the causes of greatness in political communities and on the causes of decadence in political communities. If Montesquieu limited himself merely to causes of Roman greatness and decadence, then there would be a question of the universal teaching in his book. If he were concerned with causes, his would only be the work of history. But he offers considerations on all of this, which means he steps outside history and would consider the significance and directionality of his discoveries or his account of political life as such. We must also, in this book, be concerned about what greatness is and what decadence is. Greatness has many different aspects, many different understandings. Greatness is what? The extent of the land and the conquests? The ability to exert power or coerce others? Internal political excellence or health? Or maybe the great moral qualities of a people? A great people can make others do what it wants. That is power. And weak people suffer what they must. A great people may have lots of land, while a lesser weak people have less land. A great people have civil harmony, or maybe a strong regime, while a weak people verge on civil war. A great people have vitality, while a weak people repose in a corrupting decadence, unable and perhaps unwilling to act. All of these ideas do not necessarily go together. A great people in terms of power and longevity can still be corrupt, a shell of them former selves, but living among weak people who can't knock it down. Also, perhaps these ideas do not go together. If I am right about this, then it is crucial to understand the tensions between these forms of greatness as they manifest themselves in Rome, and then to consider what this might mean for human life generally, and for modern countries like America in particular. In any event, we must hone in on what Montesquieu means by greatness and what he means by decadence. Another thing, Montesquieu writes strangely. He writes more like Machiavelli than like Gibbon, but he's more obscure than either. His style is epigrammatic or aphoristic. His paragraphs are short, and it is not always clear how one paragraph leads to the next. The paragraphs are disjointed, and they follow one another with a clear explanation of why, or without a clear explanation of why they follow one another. Even Gibbon refers to Montesquieu's strange way of writing, saying that it is characterized by, quote, a sententious and oracular brevity, end quote. Montesquieu speaks in a brief, somewhat pompous manner befitting an oracle, rather than a prolix academic style, academics who draw out the logic of an argument for all the readers to see and hear. And Montesquieu admits to writing in this manner in the spirit of the laws, where he says, quote, one must not always so exhaust the subjects that one leaves nothing for the reader to do. It is not a question of making him read, but of making him think, end quote. Arthur Meltzer treats this topic in his fine book, Philosophy Between the Lines. But alas, anyone who cracks open considerations will immediately know what I am talking about. It is dense. It requires great attention to detail in order to understand. And we have to interrogate the book to understand it. I can only hope to give a good enough overview for my viewers. Let us talk about the organization of the book for a moment. The book is broken into 23 chapters. It contains roughly two halves, one on the Roman Republic and one on the Roman Empire. The middle chapter, chapter 12, concerns the condition of Rome after Caesar's death, the moment of transition, in other words, from the Republic to the Empire. Now, it would be incorrect to simply identify the greatness of Rome with its Republic and the decadence of Rome with its empire. Or would it? Certainly, Rome reached just about the extent of its conquests under Julius Caesar and Pompey, before the rise of Caesar Augustus. Its further reaches were under Trajan 250 years later, but Trajan was adding here and there to what Caesar and his contemporaries had done. It had grown exponentially in the generations, 2 or 3 generations before Caesar Augustus. How did the Republic change to make this conquest possible? How did the conquest change the Republic? And did this conquest represent political greatness, or did it represent decadence? Those are the crucial questions of that central chapter, and those are the crucial questions and themes of the book as a whole. Montesquieu makes the spirit of the laws a theme of his political philosophy. The spirit of the laws is what makes man what he is at any particular time. That spirit is a reflection of the forms of government, the climate, geography, soil, social conditions, religious beliefs, and other things. All these things make up the spirit of the laws. As he writes in his great opus, The Spirit of the Laws, Book 19, Chapter 4, quote, "Many things govern men," end quote. Men are presented as being passive rather than active, subjected to the general spirit rather than free to make it. It is on this basis that Montesquieu sees human phenomenon that can be the object of science. Émile Durkheim, a later French sociologist, sees Montesquieu as the founder of sociology, a science that explains human beings as products of social structures around them. We only need to discover sociological laws that are general and necessary and that make man what he is. The social world is regulated by strictly necessary causality, or so it seems. And that is the world Montesquieu seems to draw. It is incumbent upon the great thinker to determine the model, or all the factors that cause man to be what man is. And all these factors are what Montesquieu means by the general spirit of the law. Montesquieu adopts the viewpoint of a spectator or scientist instead of the viewpoint of the statesman. For the spectator, there is no real initiative in agents or in people. Rather, their actions or their works are the necessary effect of necessary causes. The Romans themselves and all the people that the Romans dealt with are data points for understanding greatness or the conditions that make for greatness. They are all data points for decadence and the conditions that make for decadence. So this is generally Montesquieu's ambition, to lay forward the factors that foster political health. What made the Romans great? What caused their decadence? The factors that foster political health at one epoch may not foster political health in other epochs. That epoch itself is part of the equation that makes for greatness and decadence. So there may be a limit to how much the Roman example will be applicable to modern times. The modern world, with its Christianity and commerce, are different, and hence the spirit of modern laws are different. This forces us to ask, what ultimately can be learned from the Romans? Let us turn now to Montesquieu's Spirit of the Laws in order to figure that out.